Okay, hello again. I've probably, well, firstly, just so I can see who I'm talking to again, you've probably heard me either yesterday or this morning. Can you just raise your hands if you were here at the workshop yesterday? So many of you were here yesterday. Over the last 24 hours, lots of people have been coming up, especially this morning, asking questions and more information about some of the things we talked about yesterday. So just for 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going to summarize and bring together some of the questions that I've been asked individually to share all of the insight and feedback. And it's been really interesting. My voice is going. You can see how much I've been talking. I've been in education now for almost about 22 years with teaching. As you know, I spent almost 10 years working for Edexcel and Pearson, and now I'm with GL. And the thing that I love doing at the moment, I'm working with schools around the world, 750 at the moment, and what makes me want to do my job and get out of bed in the morning is that I'm making a difference of what happens in these schools. Now, we've just heard from school group leaders about brand, quality, and some of the groups that we're working with, especially in the Middle East, so the GEMS, the Innoventures. I know Poonam was meant to be here today from the Innoventures group in Dubai. We are supporting those groups of schools, just as we work with governments, in embedding good education practices across the schools. And we are just one aspect of what goes on, okay? We are not the solution. We are not the one-stop shop. You need everything else to support it, but we provide some of that background to support it. I showed this slide yesterday about what makes the most impact in the classroom, because quite often schools will invest in smaller classes, or they'll think, right, technology is the way forward. I'm going to go and buy iPads for every child in my primary class because that's going to make a difference. That may make you look good in front of parents, being a digital savvy school, but there's no academic evidence that always shows that that makes the best impact on teaching and learning. So the Education Endowment Fund is one of the education alliances in the UK that does lots of research based on education, and part of their research correlates with John Hattie's research that I'm sure you're aware of from New Zealand about what has the biggest impact. Feedback to students and using data, giving good quality feedback has an impact, okay, of 8 months. Okay, so by using good feedback, you improve a child's learning by 8 months. If you look at ability grouping, which is what many schools do, so top set and bottom set students, that actually has a negative impact of overall students' attainment after a few months, a -1. So Education Endowment Foundation UK, John Hattie's website, Visible Learning, are really useful sources to go and have a look at. And it's the feedback, metacognition and parental involvement that are the most cost-effective ways of improving teaching and learning. And data provides a lot of that infrastructure. It doesn't do everything, but it provides a lot of that support. People have been asking me about use of data, okay? Whenever I'm with a school and I'm not saying this is what you have to do, because every school is different, I say, well, what do you want to achieve? What's your challenge? Now, we all have the same challenges of wanting students to achieve their best, but you may have, as we heard earlier, you may have groups of schools that want to get a better brand. They may have identified that they're a low-budget school, so maybe they can't afford the best qualified teachers. They've got to improve teacher training themselves. So how are they going to improve the quality of teaching? One of my schools in Dubai, that is an Indian curriculum school, is catering for the lowest price point of the market. So the teachers that they're getting are often unqualified. So I've been working with one of the principals there about how the data from some of these assessments can be used to support those teachers in understanding some of that pedagogy. Okay? And again, it takes time. You can't just do this and buy it and it's an answer. It takes time and a strategy within the school. And that's where we can begin to help some of those ideas. The other question that came up, I think some of the principals have been thinking they buy one thing and that's the answer. The data from the different types of assessments, and we have over 70 different assessments. You don't need 70. can be used in different ways. So the data from Cat 4, for example, can be used by your leadership team, and it will be used also by your teachers, but in a slightly different way. And that's why in the sample reports you'll have seen different types of reports available. Now I'm going to show a quick video, or before I get there, yesterday I showed you some complicated questions, okay, and I said I was going to show you a harder one. So this is a non-verbal reasoning question, and to give you an idea of that the Cat 4 doesn't measure what you teach, it measures their cognitive thinking and their reasoning. Now there's 4 options, and the students have to choose which one of these meets the pattern. Can anyone identify which is the correct answer here? This one always stumps people because it is quite complicated. So the cognitive ability test, Cat 4, is designed to measure how students think about patterns and how they can manipulate shapes. And if you look at the spatial reasoning items, you get ones that come into very complex 3D. No. It's the 4th. Yeah, it's the 4th one. And if you look, it's the relationship between how many points on top and how many sides there are at an angle. Okay? So it's quite complex, quite deep thinking. So I'm just going to show a very short video clip of Matthew again. And this is him explaining how he uses and why he thinks this cognitive abilities test that isn't measuring what students have been taught is really important. Now, Matthew started in a school in Thailand with all Thai students, and through using data, not only has he built the quality of teaching and learning, he's also increased the brand of the school. So he's actually seen better teachers want to come to the school because they're beginning to see that the school is actually innovative and moving. So even though they're a relatively cheap school in Thailand, their quality of what they've achieved is actually quite high. This is just a 2-minute video clip, again from Bet in Singapore. Is there sound?
And I want to take attainment out of this picture first of all. At Bromsgrove, using a number of really sophisticated data tools that clean out all the attainment data. It's almost like clutter. If I know too much about how a child did last term or last year or last key stage, then it almost makes it more complicated. I want to know their raw potential. Deep down, what are they capable of? I want something that's really holistic. I want to know their verbal ability. How good are they thinking with words? I want to know their quantitative ability. How good are they thinking with number? I want to know their non-verbal aptitude. How good are they thinking with concepts? And critically, for a world on whose future success we all depend, and whose future success depends on the STEM and spatial ability of our students, I want to know how good are they thinking with space and shape. And if I know all of that about a student, then I can truly start to meet their needs. I can also start to understand fully how they learn, what their own learning needs are, their own learning styles are, and I can start to tailor their learning experience for them. And I can also start to set meaningful targets. Let's take a very simple attainment rubric of A, B, C, D, E. Okay, it works for all of us here. A being the top attainment, they've got very high marks, E being the lowest. If all of my aptitude data shows me that a child should be capable, if all goes well, of a C, then when that child gets a C, they should feel amazing. We should all be celebrating their tremendous achievement. If that child is capable, based on all of the aptitude data, of an A, and they get a C, then there's something wrong. The child needs to know that there's something wrong. We need to do something about that. We need to be starting to celebrate a child's achievement in relation to their aptitude rather than their attainment, because that isn't open to all. So, aptitude is key, and that data source is critical. We at Bromsgrove...
Okay, so that's Matthew talking about aptitude and cognitive ability. And it completely revolutionized how they teach and how they think about their students, especially when they get students from very, very wide backgrounds. All these videos are online, so if you do want them, make sure we've got your email address and I can send you the links. Matthew talked about the difference between attainment and aptitude. And again, many people asked questions this morning about their CAT data and how you can get them to improve the CAT data. Well, you use the different tests differently. So many of you came up and said, we've already got asset tests. Well, asset tests are great. And here, this is a graph that talks about students' progress. If you understand every year a child should be improving their attainment because they should be improving what they know year on year. If you compare that with their aptitude and their ability, you would hope that they're constantly on track with what they should be capable of. So using CAT with ASSET or using CAT with other attainment tests or even your own in-house maths or science tests is really, really valuable. Okay, and we can give you some case studies on that as well. Data is not just about reflective analysis. It's to help you plan going forward. And that's one of the most interesting things to be looking at, what you can do to be able to move forward and how you can improve what happens in the classroom. The quick questions that came up about testing logistics, okay? They're online and it's easy to manage, okay? Cost was an interesting one. People will say, well, how much does it cost? You buy chairs, you buy tables, you buy whiteboards as an infrastructure of the school. Many schools see this assessment as critical to them to perform. So in many ways it should be wrapped up in the school fees and then averaged out across the school. Now I know that's quite a different concept to how things work here, but you don't charge parents for the use of a chair, but without a chair you can't teach the students. And that's how many of the schools we work with treat the data. So again, please contact me and we can talk about ideas of how that could be done. The thinking skills. If anyone's interested in how you develop verbal reasoning, spatial reasoning and quantitative reasoning, there's a series called Let's Think resources aimed at early years and primary schools. We developed it with King's College in London. And there are a set of hands-on activities that get children to think laterally about some of these things. It's developing cognitive skills in early years and primary schools. Great resources, they're just kits of activities and lesson plans. Again, come and see us and I can email you the links and send you the details of those. So if you are interested and you want case studies, we have got 12 different case studies from different schools on our website, on our stand. Please come, and we have some really good assessment and focus catalogues that are case studies of schools around the world and how they've spotted children that are underperforming or they're not achieving their potential. And then information in the brochure talks about how you can implement and some of the challenges. But please do make sure we get your details if you want any information. And as I said yesterday, I'm looking for a few schools here where we can really sort of work with and run some pilots to begin to support the schools. That's my email address. James and myself, two Jameses, will be outside after the main session finishes. Okay, thank you again, and hopefully speak to you later. Bye-bye.